All right, here with Rob Valli, ABCA, A-Tech, NCAA Division, NJCA Division III Head Coach of the Year, Head Coach of Rowan College, 2023 National Champs. You guys were 53-5 this year, which is tremendous. So congrats, Rob.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, what did 9 years of amateur scouting teach you?
Well, it was I I worked for the Rockies, or I should say helped. Yeah, when I first came to Gloucester as the head coach, my buddy was the area scouting director for the Rockies, and back then, if you remember, a lot of junior college coaches were joining on as associate scouts, and it was just helping us. And there was a draft and follow, which was more prevalent, so that worked in our favor with some players. So it was that. It wasn't a big piece of my time, but it was. I tried to be helpful to them when they needed me, and that. And then when I left Temple, I took a part-time job with the Miami Marlins. And again, the area guy, he took on some additional responsibilities. His area grew, and I was able to shave off a bit of his territory and help out and do some pro coverage in the summer. So I'll tell you, it was a great experience. It's not a job. It's a job I'm glad I did, but I don't know if, I really have a lot of respect for those scouts and their time away and all they do for the game. But it's a difficult job from the standpoint of if you're someone who likes to know where you're going to be on a certain day and have a schedule and have a routine, and that's not for you. The work never bothered me. It's like recruiting, but just in a different way. You're on the road, but it helped me evaluate much better. It helped me understand how to slot players and define roles and evaluate and see who they are and find the maybe small parts of their game. So I think it made me a better baseball coach, and I'm glad I did it.
What about the pro coverage side? Because I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand is that, especially your amateur guys, and I don't know how much they do that anymore, but it used to where your amateur scout would be in their area, but then they'd have to pick certain teams to go watch that were playing in the minor leagues. So, I mean, I go watch a lot of minor league games, and it's amazing to me that you still can pick out the guys that are probably going to make it out of those guys on the field. And it's a small group. It's really hard to make it to the big leagues, but it is amazing that, okay, a lot of guys get drafted, but you can still go watch a game and be like, okay, that guy's got a chance, that guy's got a chance. Was that one of the things that stuck out to you when you were doing pro coverage?
I enjoyed it. I covered the Wilmington Blue Rocks because it wasn't so far for me, and it helped. That was very educational for me because you could see who the prospects are and who the fillers are. And you could even, when you sit on a team for 5 days to get all the starters, you could see how they played them. I mean, and how the game. And I say this, I remember being at a game where the guy had a no-hitter, and everybody started to get excited. But his pitch count was coming up. And, the other pitchers, they're in front of me charting. And I said, what's his pitch count tonight? And oh, yeah, he was out of there in the 7th inning. Everything was great. Big crowd. I think it was like a fireworks night. Big crowd. Everybody loved it. And, but it is that they're protecting their $1 million arms when they're 19, 20 years old. But pro coverage was great just to see. I think to be able to coach at any level you have to really have an understanding and a hands-on understanding of where is the player coming from before they get to you, and then where might they go if they get beyond your program. I think that's incredibly important. And even like I do some youth camps in the summer. It's important for me to stay in touch to see how is a 12-year-old developing? Like what are the things that help them? And I apply a lot of it, or it just gives me a broader range of understanding on player development and skill development. So pro coverage is definitely that. Just to watch the batting practices and that, and see how skillful some guys are, and it was fun.
What do you relay into your own guys as far as you're trying to get guys to the next level? Whether it's pro ball or 4-year. What do you relay in your guys to be like, hey, this is really what you need to focus on right now to get you ready for the next level?
Well, we've been very lucky, and this year we just got it done, the last guy, but we've been 100% placement out of Gloucester, and they go to some of the highest levels of Division I, and I would say almost 100% are offered a scholarship somewhere. And then on some occasion, they'll choose a D3 for a variety of reasons, but oftentimes they're signing at good Division Ones, Division Twos. And then we've been lucky to have guys in the draft, pretty regularly. So all of that has been great. I'll tell you what I do, which is helpful, because all these young guys, they believe they're in the fifth round the next year. Everybody's a fifth, everybody has it figured out. Everybody, how quickly we want to sign up, an advisor and slot ourselves in these rounds. It is very difficult to be a professional baseball player. So one of the things we do is we sit down in the classroom and I give them an evaluation sheet. I give them a little bit of a explanation on what the tools are and how to evaluate their tools and what the averages are and what they may be. And then I ask them to evaluate themselves and say, okay, well, we just did it. You're a 7-1 run. What does that equate to? You got to put a number on it. And that's what you learn in scouting. You have to put a number on it. You can't just say, he hits for good power. It has to have a real number associated with it to be able to speak a common language among your colleagues. So we do that, and then they evaluate themselves, and then I think that helps them understand they have some things to work on, and then we continue to do that. Just say, okay, what are your tools? Evaluate your tools. Where do you stand? And then how might you grow from there? So I think that's important for them to understand in a real way. What kind of prospect am I, or I may not be.
Is that a way for you to work around recruiting? Because you have 100% placement, so it's like, okay, with NJCA Division III, you can't offer scholarships. Like, okay, right. I know you can't get a scholarship right now, but we're going to get you a scholarship at some point.
Yeah, we've had a lot of success in our program, even before me. We've kind of had three coaches, from Barry Davis to me. Then I left to go to Temple and then back, and Mike Dixon did an amazing job in between and then back. So our brand has solidified itself. And I say this, a lot of people will say to me, wow, recruiting must be much easier now that you won a national championship again this year. I said, actually, no. The recruits, I think they think it's cool. I think they like to be able to say, well, they won a national championship. So it legitimizes who we are as legitimizes our talent level and who we are. But I say we would be far better off losing the region tournament and having three guys in the draft. And that would help recruiting much more. But it becomes, because we don't play in front of big crowds, the media attention in the Northeast. I mean, we're so far down the pecking order. I mean, even the Division I baseball in the North, nobody cares. No one's paying attention to us. So the recruiting for us has to be such an educational piece. And I'm not the greatest tweeter in the world. I'm not the everyday social media promote our program. I should be. I say that not as a humble brag, but that's probably a generational flaw that I have. But we try to inform and educate through the years, having been the track record. Now all the coaches know who we are, and from when they're playing days. So that has helped.
I mean, have you had a chance to reflect on the season? It's a phenomenal year. Only 5 losses. It seems like you guys were built on pitching and offense.
We could really hit this team. We have really
numbers,
good.
By the way, 8 guys hit over 400.
Unbelievable. And in that group, not yet, because the reason they were at junior college, they were just an unfinished product, just an unpolished. Aaron Graber really didn't play much baseball until he came to junior college. He was a football player. He was going to play college football, and then he became National Player of the Year. Rocco Bresniak, who was a phenomenal player, really on the perfect game scene, didn't play much in high school. There was COVID, there were some academic issues. So he didn't play a lot of baseball for a while. And then these guys, as the season went on, just unbelievable. And then we're talking about guys with over 100 RBIs and 18 home runs as a freshman and sophomore in college. That's hard to do. It's hard to do. And I'll say our pitching staff was a concern going in. It was the first year we didn't have a pro prospect. Usually every year we've got some, big guy who throws hard. He doesn't know where it's going, but he's a prospect. Everyone has to come see him. This year we didn't have that. And really what we had to do, because they all want to be pro prospects, and we put the radar gun away for the whole year, except in the games, because we have to monitor, strength and bounce back and that. But we took it out of the conversation. And we said, guys, no one is going to pay you to go to the next level for your velocity. No one's paying for your velocity right now. They'll pay you to pitch, and that has happened. They'll pay you to pitch, but they're not going to pay for your velocity, so be a better pitcher. They bought in, and they really started to pitch. So we had a lot of really just upper 80s, maybe 90, 91 guys, like below the prospect radar for velocity, below anything that gets you excited these days. But they figured out how to pitch. They figured out how to get the third out, and they figured out how to put hitters away with 2 strikes, and the things that help you win games. So,
what are some red flags for you as far as velocity when you're tracking in game? What's a red flag for you from a dip in velo where, okay, we might have to skip a start or skip an outing just to let him bounce back?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, you say that. I've been doing this a long time. I've come back to a place in college baseball that I love the most of all the jobs I've had. And it truly, at this point, is not about me. And, there was probably a time I'd leave a pitcher in longer to try and get a win. And I have figured out we can win with those modified pitch counts, almost like what I learned watching the pro guys. If you paid a pitcher, I say to our guys, you're my 19-year-old first rounder. So I'm going to treat you as such. And we're going to really be conservative with pitch counts and go from there. So I ask them a question every day. I say to every pitcher every day, usually after they finish whatever their throwing volume is for that day, I'll say, hey, what % are you today? And the freshmen, they all start out and they say, Coach, 100%. I go to that like 100. I said, no. Every great pitcher, all the pro guys, they know they're in tune with their body. They know what their body is telling them. They know just where they are. And I said, we have 14 of you. Everyone is going to bounce back different. Everyone has a different routine. Everyone has a different arm. And I said, I'm going to ask you every day. I'm going to ask you the day after you pitch. I'm going to ask you in the middle. I'm going to ask you, what % are you today? And they'll tell me. Even the guys who've long since played for us, that are playing somewhere else, I'll shoot them a text. Hey, what % are you? Just to see where they're at. And they know how to answer now. So we really go by that, by an honest answer of where they are. Our pitch counts are very conservative. I mean, and I don't know the pitch count's always the end-all, be-all answer, but we're typically in the 80s, really, like I see when you go do A-ball, like they're typically getting our guys in the 80s and getting them out of there. And we'll see, like our guys on the chart know, like if there's a dip, if there's a 4 or 5 mile an hour dip, or just even like 2 or 3, like there's a consistent dip in between innings when you come in, like hand me the chart. Don't leave it on the thing. Hand me the chart. And that's normal. Like it's not, no one's trying to get someone out of the game. Hand me the chart. I need to see when it drops. And then we make a decision from there. But we usually try to be conservative because we have really good ones. And we've won a lot of games. And we're able to do it with a combination of pitchers in different roles. So that's been a strength for us.
Have your assistants been with you a long time?
Yeah. So Greg Chu is amazing. He allows me not to even think about pitching, which is okay with me. I say, like, I worked for Fred Hill at Rutgers, an amazing Hall of Famer, and Fred Hill used to say, if they asked me to vote for a rule that we took the pitchers out of the game, I would vote for it. So you know what I mean. Like sometimes the pitcher, they're their own entity, but I don't have to think about those guys. Greg played at Gloucester in the early 90s. He got drafted after 1 year. He played several years, like a lot of guys do. And now he's a teacher right up the road. So he's with us every day. He is, how the NBA, they say like Jerry West, that's his image, the NBA symbol. I say like Gloucester baseball, which is important to us. Like we should put the silhouette of Greg Chu because he is Gloucester baseball. He's what everyone, should or could be. So Chewy is amazing. He's an under the radar guy. He is not he says, he'll say, hey, what are you on that snap face for? Like, what are we doing on there? Like we've got to put sometimes there have been years where we have to put the guy's phone numbers in his phone for him. He's not into that stuff, which is, I'll tell you what, good for him. But he can really coach pitchers and he really understands them. And he coaches in a way that, when they say, if you can't say it simply, you don't really understand it yourself. He has a high level understanding of pitching, and he could say it very simply to a freshman pitcher and get a performance out of him. But he has been our rock in that. if you asked him what he does best, he would tell you coach the base runners, which again, as a head coach, and we don't have a big staff. It's Coach Chu and I, Greg Chu and I, and then we usually get a former assistant because there's such low money involved in this. We usually get some other young former player who will help us out for a year or two, as they find their way. But yeah, he's been amazing.
You said pitching was a concern in the fall. At what point did you say, okay, they're starting to figure this out?
I think right after we got the last out in the World Series, I think we said, okay, we did it. We navigated it. Now it was, I'll say, I knew it was going to be, we've been really lucky in previous years. I'll give you an example. Like 2 years prior, our third pitcher was a 10th rounder. We've been very, very fortunate with power arms and pro prospects and good arms. We didn't have that. It was amazing. We didn't have it. Then we had a couple good left-handed pieces, and they were out for the year. And it was a mix and match. It was a make sure everybody's strong, mix and match, share the game, pass the ball, and we were able to do that. So yeah, there's no rest in junior college.
It looked like it was closer by committee, and I mean, did you kind of know that coming out of the fall because you don't have probably a defined role on who's going to shut the game down, that it's just like whoever's turn it is to finish the game, it's going to be their turn to finish the game?
Yeah, just that. And I get it. Like when I was at Temple, we had a closer, not always, but a lot of times we had a closer. We had one guy who was really good who played for the Dutch national team for many, many years, came with me from Gloucester. And he set the saves right. Like you don't always have a closer in junior college because it's just the mentality of the role. They don't quite understand it. It's just, I think in the closer, there's a maturity level, there's an experience level, which they've never had. They all come to us. They were the starters. They pitched, every other day in high school. So we tried, if we get it right, I think a split of the game is good for us. Get a guy through 5 and, he's at 85 pitches through 5 and then somebody in for 4 and he gives us another 85 pitches or so. That has been a recipe for us. If you have 2 good ones, if you have 1A and 1B on any given day. But we've had a hard time just finding a closer, which I don't know. In the big leagues, you get some staffs pitched by committee too now. So who knows?
That's what some of the cognition tests that are out there now that, are showing that some pitchers are predisposed to being better on the back end of a game because their mentality is different and they can't start. And so that's what some of the cognition profiles out there are showing, that, okay, if you take this test, you're going to be able to see on your pitching staff who might be able to fill those roles because they can handle it mentally. Yeah.
And this. The last 3 outs are a lot different than the first 3 outs.
I've always said it's the first out of the last inning is the hardest to get.
Right.
If you can get that first out of the last inning, you're probably going to be in good shape, but you got to get that first one out of the way, because if you don't, then the wheels could fall off in a hurry.
Right. And it's not like pro ball where they have a recipe in the bullpen. They go to the setup guy and they go to the closer. And, if you have a 5 or 6 or 7 run lead in the big leagues, the game is over. You could turn the TV off. The game is over. They know how to get the last outs. They might give up might get nicked for a run or 2, but they know how to get the outs. In junior college, put your seatbelt on, because I don't know how to get, they don't always know how to get the last outs, even us. And, we've been pretty consistent, but
Are you more apt to leave a guy in then if he's rolling? With that, I think that's where,
as long as he's strong,
you get into trouble sometimes. Like, okay, here's a defined role. We need to bring our closer in, but the guy in front is rolling. Just let him finish.
That's exactly right. And that's what Coach Chu will just say, because I'll ask him, and it'll be my decision, but I lean on it. I say, hey, where are we with Ryan right now? And he'll say, he's rolling, low effort inning or whatever. Or he'll say that inning took a lot out of it. He knows those guys. Like, every throw they make, he's with them. So he knows them. And they all want to bulldog it, you'd hope. But I think I say to them, I'll be the adult in the room, and I'll get you out of there, and we'll get you strong at the end.
Early in the year, it looked like 3 losses in the first couple of weeks. But, is that an expectation for a cold weather team where it may not look like it's going to look after a month?
It could, yeah. I say we're never as good as we'll be early, and we go to play Lewisburg on the road, and they're very good. And we had been winning that series pretty consistently. So we go down there and we lost 3. We lost 2 by 1 run, and you're playing 7-inning games, and they're a good team. So I don't hit the panic button anymore. But we've gotten to a point we don't like to lose. The players know it's a split is not okay. So the culture has evolved.
Well, you won your last 19 games.
Yeah, it's pretty good, right?
Yeah. I mean, was there any pressure on the guys there to keep rolling? Obviously, you're in tournament time on the back end of that. Was there any pressure with that, or is just that the expectation of the program is that we're probably going to roll off a pretty lengthy streak?
We expect to win. We expect to win. And I will say this. This is the X factor, and you realize this as well as anyone. When you have a good team, other people have good teams. When you start to show up and they truly like to play together, and when they like to play together, I said this going into the World Series. My buddy said, "Well, how's it look?" I said, "I'll be honest. They like to play together." We've been to the World Series consistently. We've been in those games, and we haven't always won it at the end. And I can tell we've been there enough that I could see, yeah, this team I think could do it. This team can't. In 2005, that team was similar to our 2005 national championship team, where, I mean, I don't know who could have beaten us. And I say that, I understand, but the players felt like they were unbeatable. In the championship game, and that Eastfield team was very good. And we had to beat them twice there, but in the tournament. But in the championship game, we went down twice. They knocked our starter out, and we trailed twice. But there was no flinch in that dugout. I mean, it was upbeat and ready to go, and they were ready. So that team, it just comes down to teams. Comes down to that. Do they have that it thing, or that the X factor, whatever you want to call
it? Smaller roster size by design. Looks like 43. I love it.
Yeah,
love it.
Yeah, I love that you asked that question.
I love it. It always sticks out to me. For me, that I get after the Division I program sometimes. I'm like, you shouldn't need 70 guys in the fall. Like, I still think Division I should have to set their roster as soon as school starts. I think they should have to name their 35 or 40 now. I think they should have to name, because personally, if you need more than that, then you can't develop.
It would help my recruiting a lot more if they would set it now. We just lost a couple really high level guys to amazing programs because they're saying, and I get it, hey, we don't know where we'll be with the portal, so we're taking them on. Okay, see you in January, but by design, we're at the point now. I mean, if I answered the email and we took all the talented guys who wanted to come, we could have 50 or 60. But I can't coach 50 or 60, not effectively.
Yeah, especially with a smaller coaching staff as well.
Smaller staff, and just, if I'm coaching the hitters, I have a one-on-one conversation going on an ongoing basis with every hitter. If I have 25 of those, it takes away from my conversation with the 1, 2, or 3. And because we try, and I believe in this, you got to coach them all the same, because you never know who's going to be up. You never know, and you coach them all the same. So we do that, and if we're saying our true goal is to win a national championship, that's our true goal, and it's realistic for us. Like we're in the World Series pretty consistently. I think we're 26 out of 30 years in the World Series, so we expect to go.
That's a crazy story.
It's crazy. It's crazy, and I say that where we have to win. I mean, now in the last couple of years, there's an at-large bid, but so the region tournament, you have to win a tournament with 4 teams, double loss elimination. Where if you have one bad day, you go home. How do you go 26 out of 30 when if the ball bounces wrong, you go home? You have to say culture. I mean, you have to. The culture has to weigh into that in a large way. They have to truly feel like they can win, and it's a winning culture in lots of ways, and that we're prepared. So I tell them when we recruit them, we're only going to have the right number of guys to win a championship and develop you properly so you all can have the careers that you deserve to have. And if we have 35 or 36 of you, I can't do my job properly. The one time that one of my teams, one of the Gloucester teams I coached, didn't go to the World Series. We were playing with two pitchers in the outfield. We had a terrible rash of injuries in the outfield, and I had it. And I said after that season, and we lost in the region championship. And I said, I'll never do that again. We're going to have 40 guys. I'm never going to go through a season where we're patching it together with pitchers out there just to get through. And then by about, July, I calmed down. I said, no, if I'm going to say to them, you come here to play, you'll have a distinct role on the team. You'll show up to the ballpark every day and knowing I might not be in the lineup, but I have a role today. And if that situation arises, I'm in, then it's better. And our culture with 30, it becomes very workmanlike because they know the team's going to count on me at some point. So I think some of the teams that don't do as well as they'd like to do with 45, what do they say? If you have 45, you don't have any, you might do better with less. And from a culture standpoint.
Have your hitting conversations changed much over the years as you've gotten older and more experiences, what you're relaying to the hitters? Have your conversations changed?
You know what it's become? I love to coach hitting. It's my favorite thing to do. If I could just coach hitters, I would. I'd be more than happy if Coach Chu said, "Hey, I'll be the head coach," I'll say, "Great. Here you go."
It helps when you have 8 guys hitting over 400, though. That makes coaching hitting a lot of fun.
But I really like to coach hitters. I love the development of it. I love the evolution of it. My philosophy hasn't changed a whole lot as the world of Twitter has evolved many coaching philosophies. And it's not that I don't stay current. I watch and read and listen and talk and question everything. I'd like to learn more. But
you said it too. It's still a simplicity thing.
It
still boils down to keeping it simple.
Keep it simple. We never, and I say this, like we don't do drills. We don't do hitting drills. As I say that, we have hitting routines. Like, so is it a drill? I just don't call it a drill. We have certain things and progressions that we go through to hit, but we hit every day. We hit a lot. We hit off machines every day. We hit velocity every day, and we definitely hit breaking balls every day. And it's a big piece of our practice plan on a daily basis. We try and create a culture of hitters, and we've been lucky to do it, where they love to hit and they want to hit more. And it's often me trying to maybe slow them down, like, okay, let's cut back on volume today or this week or whatever it may be. But they like to hit. The conversation is about hitting, whereas we're having productive, intelligent conversations about hitting. Not just, almost like a home run derby conversation, like, hey, dude, try this. Like, but it's a good, if you go in our dugout by about mid-season, it's a pretty good hitting conversation going on in there. They value the right things in at-bats and approaches and pitch in reading, making good decisions. And we really try and give them an education on those things. The mechanics, we work with who they are, and then try and find pieces to enhance who they are. But it's a daily conversation. It's not one drill. I was fortunate enough when I got to Temple, John Chaney, legendary basketball coach, was basketball coach. And I would sneak into his 6 a.m. practices because I was really interested. I was right down the hall from a legend. How does he do it? He would throw the ball out and they would play. And there were no drills, and really no warm up, which would give the athletic trainers heart attacks. But, hey, let's play. And then he would give that team a complete education on what was happening on everything. He would stop the ball and go over every nuance of a certain thing. To me, the hitting conversation with our players is very similar. We're going to hit, we're going to hit, we're going to hit. We're not going to make changes on a whim. We're going to evaluate, and I'm really going to see things through for a long time before we even make a change. And we're only going to change. We're only going to have one thing at a time that we might be addressing, one at a time. If you have 2, it's too many. One at a time. And I'll tell them, like, hey, there might be 3 things we do. It's a little bit of an experiment, but let's try this. This may fix 2 or 3 things down the line. But that back and forth, like our text conversation, it is truly an ongoing conversation about their hitting, sharing of videos, looking at a lot of big league stuff. And, we look at a lot of video of successful big leaguers. What they do in the game is not necessarily what some people are trying to teach these days. Just watch what they do, and there's some similarities from Babe Ruth to modern day.
With the breaking ball stuff, how much are you mixing in left-handed curveball slider, right-handed curveball slider? How much are you mixing and changing it up on
every day? Every day. Because and I say this. Well, first off, I say, how does a high school hitter ever hit a curveball in a game? Because he doesn't ever see it other than in the game. Unless some teams have some hack attacks and things. But every day in the cage, I'll prescribe the pitch oftentimes. Like, I'll say, okay, right-handed slider in cage 1, left-handed curveball cage 2, and on the field, bunt fastballs. Like, that's our early work type of stuff. So, yeah, right and left-handed breaking balls in the cage every day. And then a lot of times a 2 machine on the field or a 1 machine and a BP pitcher on the field to vary the pitch. Almost like if I say this, practice what happens in the game, the way that it happens in the game, in the proportion it happens in the game. If you're going to see 50% curveballs, you have to practice hitting 50% curveballs. So that's what we do.
Roster's almost entirely New Jersey kids, isn't it?
Yeah. We have really good players in New Jersey. Really outstanding baseball players here. It's a great state. And, I mean, you see that. And I think Rutgers will get back to it. But when I was the assistant at Rutgers in the late 90s, early 2000s, we were keeping the in-state player home, and we were as good as anyone. I mean, we hosted a regional, and our RPI was consistently in the top 15. We had really, really good teams. And if you could just keep them home, and I get it, weather, they'll chase weather and that, but we have the same model at Gloucester. Like, if we could just keep the guys home, we really compete against, maybe a guy, if he's choosing a junior college, is he trying to go to Texas or Florida? And I get it. There's some teams with amazing programs. I think we have it too. So I say, if we just get the guys right here, we're doing great. And then that has, which you don't always see, that you cultivate that, and then it grows, because now they become our best recruiters. Whether they've played for us in the past or currently, they typically have good experiences in our program. I try to treat them fair. I'm not always nice to them, but they know at the end of the day I care about them and I treat them fair. And now they're sending their cousin, their teammate, their buddy, their even their son now. That's how old I am.
They still have Select Fest?
No, but that was a good one. That was
the first time I'd ever been to Rutgers when I was coaching at JMU, was heading up to Jersey to go to the Select Fest.
Yeah. Now PBR does a great job everywhere, but in our state, PBR has really ingrained themselves. But Select Fest was the place to be. We have a thing called the Garden State Games, which all the top 100 juniors attend, and everybody's here.
Roles fluid for you with your team? Are you setting them out of the fall, or again, you may get some guys at the break? So
we get guys at the break, and what I've learned through experience, who you think your lineup is in the beginning is never your lineup at the end. I wish I knew. I wish. I will say this pretty consistently. So we meet about it. Like in our program, my interactions with the team, because of who we are. So I'm their professor in the morning. I'm their baseball coach in the afternoon. I'm their mentor at 9 o'clock at night. We're around each other an awful lot. So our interactions, I say we're going to be transparent with each other. And, if there's an issue, or, like, hey, somebody's dogging at a practice or anything, or they're not focused enough on the punt or whatever it is, like, whatever I say to them, whatever we say, we'll say in front of all of us, not just in closed door. Now, if there's obviously some private matter, that's a different story. But, and I'm not demeaning them, but like, if there's something that the whole team knows is an issue, I'm going to say in front of the whole team, because they know. And I think that eliminates them going back to their circles and having side conversations on, hey, what's Valli going to do? Or we'll just hash it out all together, like a family, I guess, would, right? So The roles, I'll say, we don't know, and the game will tell us. We play enough games, and I think we play a lot of games where we're going to win. We expect to win. We traditionally win the game. Like, we can play different combinations of lineups, and we could give, even if we have, I say this, like our fifth outfielder last year, it might have been our sixth outfielder. He was a freshman and he was emerging and he knew his role. He still got 60 at bats. Like, there's still plenty of developmental time to get those guys in there. And now he comes back and we think he's a starter. So we just say the game will tell us who's going to play. And I try and stick with that also.
I mean, you had 2 stints at Rowan. Do you feel like the 2-year level is the best fit for you? I mean, you've had so much success.
My favorite job I've ever had. And not just, I mean, the success makes it easy. Success is fun, right? I say, if you win the game, dinner tastes way better that night than if you lost the game.
My dad always said the beer's a lot colder after a win.
It's a lot, right. Everybody, we're zippity doo dah all the way home. But no, it's my favorite job. It's my favorite job, and I'll tell you why. I don't need the limelight. I'd rather just coach. My favorite time of year, and we play a lot of championship baseball. My favorite time of the year is the fall. I love the fall. The fall for us, we practice every day, and then every weekend we play. This year we'll play 24 games against NCAA Division I, Division II teams. Like, our fall is amazing. So, but it's very developmental. It's very instructional. You can really see jumps in ability among the players. They start to come together into what we try and mold, like a workman-like, blue-collar. It's all about development type thing. Be a good teammate, and that's how you earn respect. So I enjoy those things. And then here's the other thing that, there are a lot of teacher coaches out there who and I got into education. I was a health and phys ed major because I wanted to be a coach. And that was really the only way back then. So I teach in our education department. I'm a full-time professor. I really like to teach. I always have. I liked back in the day when I taught elementary phys ed, and I like current day when I teach college education majors, future teachers. I enjoy teaching. So I get to do both things I like. Even when I was at Temple, I used to say, I wish I could go teach one day a week of, phys ed somewhere.
That was one of my biggest regrets, is that I didn't get to teach a college class.
Okay.
Coaching at Division I always felt like I should have at least taught one class here or there, because I'm the same way. I'm an educator, and I really like college-age kids, and I just felt like that was one of my biggest regrets, is that I didn't get a chance to teach a college class.
Coach, it's never too late.
I know.
You're right.
We have a lot of colleges in this area.
You could I know where you are. You could throw a stone and hit all those colleges. Yeah. They would benefit from having you in there as an adjunct.
Well, especially now, because I could probably go do a communication class from the podcast piece, or, peak performance is still my first love. I love peak performance. I would love to teach a peak performance class.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you just set your next goal.
When did you get involved with the New Jersey Baseball Academy?
So that's an idea that I've had, and it's just, so I think I have a great idea in it. And I think that, so it's not open now. It's out there. This was a pre-pandemic. This was ready to go. I had a class lined up. This was good to go pre-pandemic. But the model is, which I gave it a lot of thought and then finally put pen to paper and made a go of it. The model is the academy system in baseball, just like the European, and we see soccer doing it now. So I don't know, in this part of the country, there are these soccer academies that are, it's where a high school kid or younger goes to school.
And some baseball programs are starting to do it too.
And baseball's starting to do it. They're really starting to do it, as far as I can see, with a lot of high school and post grads.
Yep.
And I think, and I never wanted to leave my college job. But I think this can be great. I wanted to do a middle school academy where students would come and it would be their middle school education. It would be a combination of online learning. And this was online learning before anyone knew what it was. It would be a combination of online learning and in-person teaching, which it's a hybrid model, which really is the best way for a student to learn. And They could learn at their own pace. And then we would play, basically the baseball would be, the highest level of college baseball resources. A nutritionist, a peak performance coach. So we hired the local college coaches who don't make enough money in their job, and they were going to come do the training in the morning and then go show up to their college jobs in the afternoon. I think this was the perfect model of training over games, whereas we know in America now it's games and hey, we had a practice 3 weeks ago, and I think the correct model is individualized learning, which I've become passionate about and have learned a lot about. Individualized learning plans with really the highest level resources on the baseball side. Then the pandemic hit, and I just haven't resurfaced it. But that's it.
Well, and Sarah, your wife Sarah is an educator as well.
Same, yeah, and we're just connected. Everyone we know. I mean, I think I'm at the right place in my life in the right time. We have all the resources. I can hire all the college coaches. I can hire all the peak performance. We can hire all the teachers. We had a college professor who had taught elementary school. She's a specialist in it, and she teaches now at the university level, but she teaches all online. So she was available to do it. And we had other resources. So I still think it's coming. I think it's coming. My kids are 6 and 8 right now. The days are long. It's hard to piece it in. But if I could find the right manager, I think we'll make a go of it. But other than that, the New Jersey Baseball Academy, I keep it as my LLC. I do summer camps. It just, it's that.
Are your kids getting into sports yet?
They love it. They love it. Thank goodness. They play it all. I mean, from swimming to gymnastics to baseball, football, soccer, you name it, softball. I believe that we sign them up for everything. And if they say, Mom, Dad, sign us up next year too, that's a win. If they say no, then, they don't get dessert that week, but we'll keep working on it.
And you said it because I think soccer does it right with the training piece. How can we start to get the youth baseball on board with training more than playing?
This.
Because it's ready, the information's readily available out there. The research is readily available, and I'm part of our youth and travel committees.
Yeah,
trying to get that. That's been the biggest challenge, And again, not trying to take money off anybody's plate,
right?
But there needs to be, almost 3 times as much training as playing for the young kids.
Correct, in so many ways, and my son is 6. He really likes baseball. We're getting to the point now, and also this travel tryout stuff happens way too young now. I mean, both my kids are involved in travel soccer. They had to try out. They had to make a team. We live in a town that our high school girls soccer team is usually number 1 in the country. Like it's very, very competitive here. It's very competitive. And are we cutting kids too soon? Like I watched my son.
I would have got cut. If I had to go to a tryout, if I was 6, 7, 8 years old, if I had to go to it, you would have cut me.
We're cutting kids too soon, and then are they willing to try out again, or where do we just lose them? And I said this. I watched my son.
Well, there's not a ton of resiliency and it's not the kid's fault. It's more the parents, where parents don't want their kids to fail.
No, at all.
If they do get cut, it's going to be hard for a parent to pull the trigger again to let them try out again. It's going to be tough on a parent.
You're exactly right. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. But we have to. I think we're competing with some people who are in that private training industry that are making a lot of money. We're trying to make a go of it. I think they could do if they put out better product. I mean, they have all the players now, but if they just made them better, I think they would find out that they would make even more money.
Yes.
So, but it should the model has to shift to more practice, less games, and I wonder as my son, and especially in the sport of baseball, it should be more practice, less games. Soccer, okay, because they run around, whatever, but. My son, I say, what do I have to do? Do I have to start my own team? Like, what do I have to do? Because I can't then, knowing what I know, put him in the model of we're playing at 8 years old, we're playing 5 games a weekend and taking the rest of the week off. Like, that's madness. So I'd like to work with your group if and maybe help. But
Yeah, we're getting a good, very diverse group from all levels. I mean, we have MLB guys that have been in MLB side that are on those committees now. We have some college guys. We've got people on the youth side. So we're trying to bring in different voices from, because everybody wants to help, but again, it's a different, anybody that comes to our convention or is a member of the ABCA, they're for the most part in it for the right reasons. So those are the right people. We got to start pulling people from outside of the ABCA and get them to the table with USSSA. There's a lot of orgs that aren't as involved with us that we need to get them to the table to again, we're not telling you what to do, but we're trying to help spread the right information of this is the correct model. And you can still make as much money as you want to make, but we're trying to produce good players and players that are going to play for a long time and lifelong baseball fans. Playing that amount of games for a young kid is, again, that's a parent thing. They think they should be playing more. Well, actually, you're going to burn that kid out, and the kid's probably not going to like baseball at some point. Where
you're right, and the injury
there needs
factor.
To be self-mastery. The only way that a young kid can get self-mastery in anything is to train more. And there they start to see that they are improving. And yes, it'll prove out in the games if you have the right training model for them. They're going to improve, and then they're going to see it in the games too.
Yeah. I mean, listen, when we were kids, we had fun at practice, right?
Yes.
And then the game was a big deal. The game day was a big deal. Now, when you play 5 games in 2 days, it's not a big deal anymore. You 2 or 3 of those games, you could care less, what the score is. But I was having
way more fun with my friends playing wiffle ball or over the line or any of that stuff when it was just us and there were no adults around.
Right. We ruin everything. Yeah.
Do you have a fail forward moment? Do you have something you thought was going to sidetrack you, but looking back now was one of the best things that happened to you?
I would say that I do. I was naive enough to leave Gloucester and take the head job at Temple University. That was really, and that it became an impossible situation. It was, they dropped the program, shortly after I left. It was a really difficult time to be in Temple athletics. But what I was single, no kids, 31 years old, and naive enough to believe that I could make a go of it, even though everything told me, and in all my research and looking at it.
I did the same thing going to Western.
I know it.
I think as a competitor, though, and your track record of doing it up to that point, I think you just feel in your heart of hearts that I can do this and I can get this thing changed.
And I did, and that's probably very similar to you. I was at an age, I lived in Philadelphia. I could look out of my sixth floor condo window and see the Temple T across the city, although it's a part of the city I would never go to. And I was naive enough, even though everything told me, and even after I was there for about 2 weeks, I mean, almost like phone in hand, ready to call my old AD and say, can I come back? Like I made a big mistake. But I learned a lot. So it was a difficult time. It was a difficult time for a lot of people who worked in the athletic department there. But it definitely made me a better coach. It made me a better recruiter. It made me understand the game better. I say this, at least it gave me a resume piece. I was Division I head coach for 6 years at a major university. So there were a lot of lessons that were learned.
And John Chaney, I mean, you think about all that stuff now that, like, if you don't go there, it's the same thing for me going to Western. Like, I learned so much there that it helped me with the next thing.
No doubt.
That's part of the life journey is yes, it may not be perfect and you might be getting it handed to you sometimes, but you're going to take all those things. If you're a lifelong learner, you're going to take those things and it's going to make the next thing that you go to much better because you did that.
No doubt. And really just when you're trying to overcome something that's impossible, and I don't know. I mean, Tommy Lasorda couldn't have won the games at Western or at Temple. It was just an impossible situation.
Your skin gets real thick.
Yeah.
Because, again, there's so much outside noise when you're at a place like that you really just get good at focusing on what those small wins are for the program because you're the one in the office and nobody sees the work that you put in.
No, nobody.
That it's not always going to show up in wins and losses. It's just not. where so again, it just honed me in. It does get your skin really thick because there's just a lot of outside noise from people that aren't in your position.
But to try and succeed in those situations, and I'm sure there are a lot of coaches that are listening to this that are in really difficult, it becomes consuming. So the other parts of your life start to take from even just a health and wellness. And I didn't have anything, really troubling, but, just your relationships, your interpersonal relationships and with family and friends. And, it just becomes consuming because the task is so overwhelming. It was when I resigned, it was the most freeing breath of fresh air moment. And I had a good associate AD that helped me understand that, Rob, it's never going to get better. Like, call one of your buddies and go work for him. And so it worked, because the year I left, I met my wife. We traveled. We had a great time. I was still connected as a scout, which I always kind of wanted to give that a try. And it just all worked out. And then I was able to go back to Gloucester, which I never envisioned, but it was the job that I always liked the most. And I had a chance to go back. So it all, when you say fail forward, it failed forward.
What were some things that you brought with you from Temple back for the second go around?
Probably the most important thing is an understanding. I had been at Division I as an assistant, so I understood it to a certain extent. But just when you know this, like when you coach at the Division I level from a recruiting, everything gets accelerated. I mean, you have to be so much better because your competition is so much better. But game management for sure. I mean, managing bullpens, especially when you're the underdog on a regular basis, you have to be almost perfect to try and navigate through some of those games. But I think I got better at creating systems, recruiting system, practice systems, player development systems.
That's what the Division I teaches you how to be efficient. You have to be efficient with your time. Like it really does just teach you to be efficient with your time. You figure out what's important, but you have to tighten everything up, because if not, you're going to get it handed to you on the road recruiting. Like you have to be way more efficient with everything. And
even in game management, the pace of the game is. I mean, you have to be ahead of it. You have to be ahead of it.
For anybody that thinks the game is slow, they've never been in a dugout when the bullets start flying. They've never been in that dugout, because then it gets really fast.
Yeah.
Do you have any evening or morning routines that you do that you like? You got young kids, so probably it's just white knuckling it with
the
young kids.
The kids are the routines these days. The lunch and this school year we'll have a first grader and a third grader. So it's, hey, check their bags. Did you upload your homework? Pack the lunch, pack the snack. Hey, soccer after school. My kids they leave the house in the morning with 2 bags. I call them. They don't understand, but I say, hey, you're a student athlete. And they go with their school bag and their sport bag for the day. I said, this is what student athletes do. And so it's that. I mean, we're everything we do is my wife teaches first grade. So everything we do is, just to get the kids, set them up for a successful day, and then do our jobs, and then run them around all night at their activities. But living the dream.
I envy you a little bit being an older parent with younger kids, because Amy and I had them, early, 28. Jackson was born when I was 28, and at that point, you're still just trying to get your career going too, and so. Correct. You've got you're drinking from the fire hose on both ends, because you're trying to make sure they're going to be fine, but you're also trying to make sure you get your career going a little bit too. So it just, you feel like you're getting pulled in a lot of directions.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of ways it could have gone either way, but it works out great now. I'm the oldest dad at pickup line, though. I will say that.
Hey, I wanted to circle back with your fall games. When you're playing, you said playing 24 games. Yeah. Are you playing straight baseball with that? Or are you trying to get enough guys time? Because, again, you're trying to get them recruited by those schools, too. How are you balancing that fall where you want it to be competitive, but you also want to give all your guys a look, too?
We play it like a spring training game. I'll script it out in the fall. And I say this to the team, like, I'll say, guys, it's not like this in the spring where hey, I'm pitching the 5th and the 6th and the 7th. Like it's scripted out for better or for worse. We script out different combinations. We try different things. I think the fall is great for us that we can play so many games. So we could play 14 dates, which allows us to play. We're pretty much playing double headers on all those days. So, we're playing 12 dates, most two times a weekend. And we play really good teams. Like when we go play, I don't know, Seton Hall or Rutgers or one of these teams, Ryder, who was in the region tournament. As a freshman, you've been in school for 3 weeks. You have to be ready to go. And it's baptism by fire, but it helps. I say it's like football for those of can understand the football analogy. We play on the weekend. We learn a lot of lessons. We come back on Monday with a new plan. We work our way through our plan, and then we go play again the next weekend. And then we do it all over again. See where we're at. See what we need to do. But we script it out, so that helps them not to worry about playing time, which is a big issue for junior college guys because they've never had to think about it before. And then they learn very quickly that the Division I game, which they all think they should be at, and some have transferred back, so they understand. But listen, if you want to go to this level, you better play really well in these games. And we typically play, we at the very least, I'll say, hang in there, if not do a little better than that. But we provide at very least, a good sparring partner, a good opponent for those high level teams. And it's a great experience. And I have good relationships with coaches in our area.
You have some great coaches in that area.
Awesome. So it's a good day of baseball all the way around.
Yeah. So with your freshmen coming in, you're going to start competing fairly quick. Do you have a throwing program for them before they show up? Just try to get their arm ready? Because, again, high school kids have no idea about the arm workload. That's the biggest adjustment for freshmen going to any level. And for college guys going to the pro level is the amount that you throw. The volume that you throw is going to be way more than you've ever had before.
We just try, and this doesn't always work this way, and we're having some pop-ups now. We say, just get here healthy. If you can just get here healthy, because, that summer after high school, where are they playing? Sometimes they're playing in a men's league. Sometimes they're still playing, they're popping up here and there, and they're not really doing their work in between.
Yes.
So we say, just show up healthy, and then we will ramp you up from there. So we just try and throw a 15-pitch bullpen the first week of September. If they can do that, and then we really, the volume, we have a throwing program every day. So they really try and throw. If you say, what do? They get 2 lifts during the week. We disperse those within their volume, and then we try and get 1 developmental bullpen in the week in the fall, and then we try and take out of that bullpen 1 piece into their game on the weekend that we're working on. And we'll commit to it because we'll say we don't care if we win or lose. Like if it's change up away to a left-handed hitter and that left-hander gets in there, we're going to throw change-ups that we might not normally call in the season, but we're going to work on it. Yep. So those things, but the volume, they come in at such different places in the fall because that high school kid who's 165 pounds might not have a lot of experience lifting weights. That's new for him. Practicing every day is new. But we are willing. We're not so regimented in our plan. We do have a plan. I mean, there's a scripted out plan that they have, but we're willing to adjust on individual pitchers. And really, it goes for all the guys, but individual. I listened, and then for the hitters too. I listened to your podcast with Trotsky. I thought it was great.
Appreciate it. The first part, his Wi-Fi, he was at his mom's house. I had to spend like 15 hours. I don't normally have to edit hardly anything but his Wi-Fi. I'm glad it turned out good because the content was so good, but I had to fill in a lot of lag gaps on that first one. The second episode, the audio was great, but I'm glad that you could tell a little bit. It got sped up a little bit here, but I'm glad that it turned out. So I've had a lot of people reach out, and I love Nate. I'm a huge fan of his. Because he thinks different. I knew it was going to be that way. The thing with Nate is you ask a question, he's going to roll for about 15 straight minutes. So,
I'll be honest.
He's so good, and he thinks so different. but I knew I had to kind of prep for him because I've had a lot of conversations with him over the years, and I knew you have to hang in there because he's gonna go for a while, so you have to hang tight with him just to make sure that you can kind of pull him back a little bit too. But I'm glad. I thought it turned out great, but I knew it was, and it was almost a blessing that the first one got cut off because it's hard to go for 2 or 3 straight hours. Yeah. It really is. It's hard. Yeah. I give Joe Rogan a lot of credit. I don't listen to him much. Right. A guy to go 3 or 4 straight hours, like it's hard to do that, to stay in the moment for that long. So it actually was a blessing that we had to stop the first one because it gave me a chance to recharge and then get ready for the second part of it too.
Well, it came out great, and I'll say this. That's now on my workout playlist because that pace of that is so fast. I took 30 seconds off my mile just listening to that. It was fast paced, but it was
so passionate. I just like being around people that are whatever walk of life you're in. I like talking to people that are passionate about what they like. Like I think it recharges your batteries and it gets your juices going because he's so passionate about infield.
Yeah, and he is. He thinks differently, my takeaway with him, which I'm glad he talked about, is, and we don't do it. Our position players, we don't long toss. We'll throw to get loose, literally, and we'll do. I mean, I'm with them. I'm with them on it, and we're going to do a better job coming out of that podcast. We're going to do a couple things differently.
Call Ed Service. We talked about it. Call Ed Service is great.
Yeah.
He's the best that we have in the game as far as regimented throwing program. I stole so much stuff from Ed. Luckily that my boss at Iowa, Coach Dom, had coached with Ed at Creighton. And so that was one of the first things that we did when I got to Iowa is Jack and I got in the car and went over to Omaha. And I spent a whole day with Ed picking his brain. And I knew Ed was good. But when you sit down with Ed, he's just so regimented. And he's really good about keeping it simple, but it's the daily stuff that they do. They're Creighton's good defensively. It's because it's every day. They do not back off. Just kind of how you guys are offensively. Yeah, you probably hit more than other programs hit, and they say it all the time. Hitters hit. It's the same thing defensively. So I stole a lot of stuff from a throwing program standpoint from Ed, but then a lot of the pitching guys that I had been around or had seen, I was taking bits and pieces of throwing stuff from the pitching guys, from rhythm, tempo, so we would have a defensive throwing program day, but then we would have a rhythm and tempo throwing program day too, because I felt like we were very similar to junior college at the programs that I was at, is that we had to develop our guys. I felt like they needed both. They needed the defensive throwing day, but then they also needed some rhythm and tempo stuff to help their arm action, clean some things up from an athleticism standpoint. So we varied every other day. It was a defensive day, then the next day was going to be a rhythm and tempo day.
And were you doing those throws from their defensive position or just in the outfield?
Just in the outfield, but I do like that guys are doing more on-field stuff with guys. Now that would be into our individual defensive work. We would be in the outfield throwing, but then we would carry that over for our individual defensive days where we're throwing the bases. Yeah, we played a lot of four-corner catch. I think that was the one biggest thing that I took from Ed, was playing more four-corner catch games. And I know Kai Carreras did a good job with that when he was coming out in college. I think four-corner catch play is the best thing that you can do for your infielders. We had some really good four-corner catch games. Well, Kevin Stahl and I talked about Bubba Dorman. Bubba was a really good junior college coach in South Carolina, was at Coastal for a little bit, but when we worked Best of Virginia camp, we played a lot of four-corner catch games. So I stole, hub drill. There's a lot of things out now that are coming out from a video standpoint that I think hub drill is the best infield and team drill. You can throw your outfielders and pitchers and catchers in with the hub drill too, just to make it more competitive with your whole team out there. Email me. I can send all that stuff to you.
All right, yeah, will do.
Yeah, but Ed's an anti-long toss guy, which I was not. I had grown up. I think my arm stayed healthy throughout my playing career and my coaching career because of long toss. Because I stayed with it. And Jamie Carroll was my college roommate. Played 11 years in the big leagues. He was my catch partner for 3 years before he got drafted. My arm strength got much better over the course of 4 years of college because of long toss and stretching it out. It drove my high school coach nuts, though, because he'd be trying to get it going, and I would still be playing catch. And
You weren't quite
my high
ready
school
yet.
coach was extremely intimidating. But I'd be like, hey, I need to keep going if I can, but then I'd have to shut it off sometimes. But
how many minutes, like in a throwing program?
it was a feel thing. Obviously there's time constraints, especially at Division I. You've got time constraints, so the total throwing program every day was about 15 to 20 minutes. But, some of that was the warm-up, too. We added in J-bands and weighted balls with our position players as well when I was at Western. At Iowa, we didn't really do any weighted ball stuff. But then as I was having to kind of coach a little bit of everything, we got into some of the weighted ball stuff. But more for the decels. We did all the reverse throws, pivot picks. I felt like for the position players, reverse throws, pivot picks were about all they needed with the green plyo ball that Driveline has.
Yep.
But we did a dynamic warm-up before that too. I always felt like from an arm health standpoint, you need to get the body going first. You need to get a little bit of sweat. That helps with elasticity of the muscles, that they're warm before you start playing catch. And I felt like our command was better because they were all the way there before they picked the ball up.
Yeah. So the thing we're going to do this year, which I've been meaning to do, is we've added a stopwatch clock to the field. So when we throw for a short time, then we'll go to take ground balls. We're going to do it on the clock, and then it's
every throw we made for fungos was on the clock.
So somebody had to watch.
I'd have our trainer do it.
Yeah. Now
our trainer would come out with me, and they would shout it out, and we would write it down. We did some competitive games, like Fridays in the fall were all like competitive stuff. So a lot of it was fungo on the clock or command stuff or, bat control stuff for points. Most kids have never been on the clock and they don't understand. And so you get both sides of it. Like, hey, we're trying to get 4-2 on this. Well, you'll have somebody with their hair on fire and they're getting it over there in 3-6.
Right.
Because they've never really had to develop
no internal
clock.
Yeah.
But that's the only way that they can get it. That instant feedback on the clock is the best thing that you can do
for the young college player. The internal clock is just not there. They don't need it.
Guys don't run fast enough. They don't run fast enough in high school. Right. You might see a guy once in a blue moon that can get down the line, but for the most part, they're going to be running 4.6, 4.7, 4.8 down the line in a high school game where you don't really need it.
But even with outfielders, I mean, when we get an outfielder in, they just want to. They think it's a live grenade. They get it out of their hand. They throw it aimlessly into the infield. Like sometimes slow down, hit the relay man.
I got that from Coach Dom. We stopwatched all our fungo stuff, our double cuts and relays too. So we had goals. You're trying to get it to third base in 11 seconds if you can to cut the guy off at third base. So we stopwatched our double cuts and relays too, so the outfielders could develop their internal clock also.
Yeah, we're going to put it on the clock and let everybody see it, and
it's the best thing that you can do for them.
Yeah.
Hey, who nudged you to get into the ABCA?
My first convention was just out of college. I'm not sure because I was just first year out of college. I was kind of like a high school assistant, and they weren't really involved. I was doing AAU back when AAU was a real thing. I mean, I was 3 years old or whatever it was. I think my first convention was probably like 1995, 1996. So I'm coming up on lifetime membership.
I was right after, I think 98 or 99 was my first one.
Yeah. I mean, I remember my first one, the historic main stage when Coach Scalinas gave the plate is 17 inches. That was my first one, and that was a standing ovation. And can you imagine being a young coach who loves it? And the legend, Coach Scalinas, I had to figure out who he was because he's West Coast. I didn't really know. And then he gives that, like goosebumps. And I've attended, almost every convention since and really love it. And I actually just booked my flight yesterday for Dallas. So the convention really just recharges me. And the ABCA has grown unbelievably.
It's crazy,
I mean, through the leadership, and and I think it's going to continue to grow.
It is.
Like you say, now you have committees.
Our numbers right now we're like 10% more than at this point than we were last year, and that usually holds pretty steady. So We could be over 16,000 this
Wow.
year. Yeah, you
Wow.
know, social media has helped us a lot. You know, I think
Yeah.
you can see us visibly if you're not a member. Even if you're not a member, you're going to see us. I'm on TikTok now. I put stuff out on
Right.
TikTok, and it's crazy to think that some of my TikTok videos I put out get 160,000 views.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that's the type of reach that social has if you use it for the right ways. And, I know there's a lot of combativeness on social now, but I've completely stopped any of that. If people want to argue, I stay away from it. I'm not going to argue with you about it.
Right.
It's
Right.
like, here's what it is. And, but it has helped. But yeah, it looks like, well, there's still, not every high school coach is a member yet. There's so many youth and travel coaches that aren't members yet that I think you're going to see it continue to go.
It's so
but a lot of that
important.
has to do with our current members too. We have such a great community of current members that do a good job of pulling new people in.
Right.
And I think the first time members, you come to the convention, I do feel like you're welcomed. And
For sure.
You're not separate. Like I think you end up finding your tribe, and if you come to the convention, if you're a baseball person, this is where you're supposed to be.
And you could connect in so many different ways. The hot stovers at night, or whatever we call those.
Those are my favorite things that we do.
Whereas as young coaches, and you see mostly a lot of younger coaches, and there's good stuff. There's great stuff. And what has happened in the ABCA has kept it affordable. As compared to some of the other national organizations, it's still very affordable.
Yes.
Other than your travel expense, to be a member and to have access.
We are
to
very cognizant of that. We want to try to keep that down and continue to keep that down.
Right.
But it has to do with our sponsors and our exhibits too. That's why it's important for people to support our exhibitors and our sponsors, because they're the reason why we can keep everything down so low.
Yeah, Barnstormers is an amazing outreach. Yeah.
Yep, all of it. So what are some final thoughts before I let you go?
Final thoughts. I think we're just starting to touch on it. Growing the game, and we're at a time where we're using. I say you, and I'm trying to do it for my small part of the world over here. Just continuing to grow the game in a proper way, like we talked about. Make some positive change in how we're developing young players, and de-emphasizing the tournament game, and emphasizing the development piece with good, sound, proper instruction. I think that's probably what our game will see over the next 10 years. It'll continue to grow, but can we do it the right way? We've evolved a little bit from some of the quick fix or some of the training strategies that have kind of come and gone. I think we're getting back to some more tried and true fundamental teachings. I think that's great, but kids have a lot of fun playing baseball. Guys like you and I, we've been sucked in and haven't looked back and made a career out of it, fortunately. So, I think now for generations like my son, and I think we can there's enough information, there are enough resources that we could make the game even better than it's ever been. And we really have our organizations amazing. And USA Baseball is another group that I'm trying to, at the beginning of getting involved with. They're doing some amazing things.
They do a great job.
Yeah. So I'm going to speak at their regional clinic coming up here in September, and I'd like to talk to those
Coach
guys.
Bartman.
Yeah. Who did the Barnstormers back in the day?
Yep, good man.
So I think everything is moving in the right direction. We just need people to keep pressing forward.
Yep.
And I'd like to be a part of that.
Thanks for your time, Coach. Appreciate it. This is awesome.
Thanks. I really appreciate you. Have a great day.